Hi, everybody. I want to share something with you. I think I should start with a question, and that question is this. What do we do with those moments when God speaks and stops us in our tracks? Very recently, that happened with me. Something that God spoke to me, and just to be quite honest, I wasn't sure what to do with his word and what he said, and it was a little puzzling and a little concerning, actually. Um, with that being said, I've shared before. I've had some struggles with some things, some personal things that we're going through in life. I think we all are. Life is rough. It's hard out there. And so, with that being said, in my life, in our home, in our family, we're not exempt from any of that. And so, with all that being said, there's just been things lately that have just been really overwhelming. And so, I kind of got in this real slump with God and with people. And not that I didn't love God, not that I didn't believe in God, certainly, but just to be honest, arguing with God and just telling God, this isn't fair, this isn't right. And one particular day, God just stopped me with a gentle rebuke, and He said, Tammy, you're making Revelation look bad. And I'm not going to lie to you. I thought, well, that's pretty harsh, God. We look at the book of Revelation and everything that it contains. We have, this beast rising up out of a sea, and we have these beheadings and, this chaos in a time like we've never known, the worst that, has ever happened in man's history and the history of the world. And I thought, well, that's pretty harsh to say that I'm making Revelation look bad. So you're going to have to clarify that for me, or you know what, you and I are going to have a problem. I'm not real happy with your word, God, and sometimes we're like that with God. And the thing about him is if we ask him to clarify, we need to be prepared because he's going to do just that. And so I just want to share with you, I really feel strongly that this is a word not just for me. I think that as God's people, we're making Revelation look bad. We see believers and we're out in this world, and let's face it, it's a mess. We are seeing the book of Revelation unfold. We're living it. It's no longer something we're just teaching, no longer something that we're just looking for. We're literally living out the book. My kids and I kind of joke about, well, what chapter of Revelation are we going to live today? And so we are truly living out the last days, and the book is unfolding. And now, all of those things that we've heard about our whole life, they're starting to make more sense. And so, with that being said, knowing what is in the book, it was hard for me to understand how. I could be making it look bad because, in my opinion, it looks bad enough. And so, as God always does, He began to reveal something to me. And so I want to look at something, and that is Revelation 21. I believe that we have to steward hope in these last days. We can't just depend, not that we ever should have, but we've all been guilty. I've been guilty. I'll speak for me. I've been guilty very often in life in depending on someone else to do the work and someone else to give me hope and to lift me up and to bring me out of those tight spots and those hard things in life. And so, with everyone being so pulled in so many different directions, with so many different things going on in the personal lives of each person, now it's not something that we're seeing as often, and that is that people are preoccupied, and I should say occupied with their own problems, and rightfully so. We're all struggling to keep our head above water. And that's kind of what I was telling God. We're struggling to keep our head above water here. And, why don't you do something? And he showed me in Revelation 21 that he is indeed doing something. So this is for all of us who are wondering if this gets better. That's the way I took his word to me, is if you're wondering if it's going to get better, this chapter proves that it does. So all I'm trying to do here is, to steward the hope in myself that he's given me, and hopefully to help everyone else to steward the hope that he's given all of us just in this one chapter. So let's look at it. Revelation 21, verse 1. And I saw, and I'm going to stop right there. So first of all, let's just do a little backtrack. We know this is John the Revelator. He is on the Isle of Patmos. He is alone. He is communing with God, and God has told him, come up here. I'm going to show you great and mighty things. And God begins to unveil this vision to him, the revelation. He gives it to John, and then John begins to write this vision. And my daughter loves to talk about John, and one of the things she'll send me every once in a while a message, and she'll say, "I wonder what John would have thought about this," or "I wonder what John would have thought, how he would have described this, or what he would have said about that." And if we imagine, the vision that John was receiving from God would have been very hard to understand. Because the things that he's trying to describe, we have to remember that he has never seen. And so he's looking for words to describe them, and very descriptive in what he's saying. He wants to make sure that he gets it all down. We have to remember God indeed told him to write. And so with that being said, 21 opens with this, and I saw John, John saw. So we know that John had his eyes open, and we could stop right there and talk about that all day long. Sometimes we have to be told to keep our eyes open, but also we have to be told very often to keep our eyes on the right vision. Very often we get our eyes on the wrong thing and we get distracted. And so I think it's important to look at 21 of Revelation and to just see that first word, saw. I had my eyes open. I had my eyes on the right vision. So I'm looking at the right thing. And very often now, we as believers in Jesus Christ, as followers, we've got our eyes on the wrong things. And so we need to focus. And that's the first thing he showed me, to steward hope in these last days, in this last hour, that I need to focus and get my eyes on the right thing. I need to make sure my vision is planted in the right place. And so what did John see? It says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. A lot of us would probably not understand why a new heaven. We'll go into that a little bit later. But we could clearly understand why a new earth would be important, or would be special, or would be something wonderful. Our earth is not in very good condition right now in a lot of different ways. There's a lot going on. So to steward hope, we get our eyes focused on, what John saw. He sees this new heaven, this new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth are passed away, and there's no more sea. So let's look at that. No more sea. A lot of people would say that's talking about water. I don't believe that it is. We know that very clearly in Revelation, it speaks of a crystal river, being in, the book of Revelation. So I don't think that it's talking about water. I think that very clearly here we've got a very deep word just in, verse 1. And that is this, that there's no more sea. Very often in the Bible, the sea is described as a place that's tossed to and fro, and the sea can be something treacherous. It can be something that's dangerous. It can be something that's, hard to navigate and hard to get through and hard to know, where to go and what's the right channel to be in, and what's the right direction. And so we could look at it and we could see that. But one of the things that I think is important to see here is that earlier in Revelation, we see that there's a great beast that rises up out of the sea. And we know that, this great beast is evil and wicked and does horrible things and, like we've never seen. And so I think if we look at this and read it in that context, and we can understand that, this is John seeing this vision that, remember, he's already gone through up to Revelation 20, and he has seen the great sea. He has seen the danger, the treacherous, waters and all of the above. He has seen the beast rising up out of the sea. And so now God shows him this clear vision where there's this new heaven and new earth, and all of that is gone. The nightmare is gone. The sea is gone. It is no more. And so we go on to verse 2. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven. And that's important. We see that he sees this city and he shares this vision with us, and we can steward the hope in that, everything that John saw, that, that we can see. We can, first of all, now we can put our eyes on that vision and know that all of these things that we're seeing unfold in Revelation are culminating up to the last part of this book, and that God's going to finish the story, and that it has a happy ending. It's not a horrible book. It's not a horror story. In the end, it has a happy ending. Everybody likes a book with a happy ending. And so John sees this holy city, New Jerusalem. It's coming down from God out of heaven, and then he describes it. He says it's prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I'm going to close with this thought. There's probably two things in this world that we would say are very beautiful and lovely things to look at. And one of those I think would be a newborn baby. But the other thing would be, a bride. If we think of going to a wedding, probably we've all been to one. Some of us have been in them. And we see the bride, and she's adorned. And, every bride wants to be beautiful on her wedding day. And for her husband, she wants to present herself the best way that she can. And so that's the descriptive language that John uses here, is that he sees this, city coming down, and he's saying it's the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. It's prepared, and that's important because, the city doesn't come down undone. The city comes down to in John's vision, it comes down, and it comes down prepared. Everything is finished. God has done his work here, and he has prepared it and adorned it as a bride for her husband. And so if we're going to steward some hope in this horrible time, in this horrible world that we're in right now, I think we could take just those two verses and see that God was giving this vision to John on this island where he's alone, where he has seen the most horrible things that anyone could ever see in vision, trying to understand the vision. We're trying to understand the vision. None of us understand it. Any more than John. How do we describe, how are we going to describe, to our grandchildren what's going on in the world? How do we describe all these horrid things? We can't find the words. And John was struggling here to describe, but he was pulling this descriptive language out all the way through Revelation, and God gives him the words, and he gives him the understanding, and he says in verse 1 and 2 here's this holy city coming down. The story has a good ending. Don't give up in Revelation 20. Don't stop now. And we can find hope in that today, is that we can't get wrapped up in Revelation 1 through 20 without keeping our eyes. Remember, the first thing John said is, I saw. And so let that be a hope to you. We're going to continue in another video, but for now we're going to stop with this thought, Make sure your vision is in the right place, just as John's was. John had his eyes on the right thing. We've got to keep our eyes on the prize. We've got to see that there's a happy ending to this story, and that God is preparing that happy ending, that it will not come to us undone, and it will come to us a beautiful ending to all of this mess. So I'm going to stop there. We'll come back in verse 3. But for today, are your eyes on the right vision?